Welcome to EnergyCo's end-of-year briefing for 2023. It's a privilege to have you all join us as we gather to reflect on the year's achievements and lay the groundwork for 2024. I'd like to begin by expressing my sincere apologies for not being able to join you live. However, I'm thrilled to be able to pre-record this welcome and share it with you. This year has presented a share of change from the introduction of a new state government to complexities of the evolving electricity market. Amidst these changes, we've continued to make substantial progress in developing our renewable energy zones and advancing our priority transmission infrastructure projects. This progress is testament to the team's dedication, its expertise and commitment to the job. What has remained clear throughout 2023 is the importance of our mandate in supporting the delivery of the state's electricity infrastructure roadmap. This was confirmed by the New South Wales Government's Electricity Supply and Reliability Checkup. We're confident that 2024 will be another year of significant progress for the roadmap, especially for all of you investing in generation, storage and transmission, which after all is what it is all about. I'd like to now acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and today there's many of them. While I'm not physically present with my colleagues today, I extend my deepest respect to the Burma-Tawgal people of the Darug Nation, the traditional custodians of the lands on which they are meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of these lands, we show our respect for elders past, present and emerging, and we bring to that a thoughtful and collaborative approach to our work. In terms of housekeeping for today, I'd like to just go over a couple of matters. You have multiple engagement tools available at the bottom of your screen. Live captions are available and can be toggled on or off as needed. Please submit your questions using the Ask a Question Slido window. This session is being recorded and will be sent out following the event. If you encounter any technical difficulties, please first utilise the Help Engagement tool located at the bottom of your screen. In terms of the agenda for today, you'll hear from the EnergyCo leadership team about the progress made in 23 and the plans for 2024. We want this to be a discussion, not just us talking at you. There have been a lot of questions submitted in advance and we'll start with those. Then we also hope there'll be time for more questions after that. But there will be plenty more opportunities to speak and hear from the EnergyCo team. We now have more than 150 people across offices in Dubbo, Newcastle, Sydney and soon to be in New England. In terms of the transition, the government has made it clear coal will not remain in the system a day longer than it is needed. New South Wales electricity demand will near double by 2050, driven by electrification of almost everything. CSIRO has confirmed that firm renewables remain the cheapest form of energy to replace coal generation and meet the growing demand for electricity. In terms of EnergyCo's role in the transition, it's about taking action now to implement the roadmap. This is critical for securing a cleaner and more reliable electricity supply and providing options to manage the inevitable changes that will arise as the transition progresses. In the words of our network infrastructure strategy that we published in May, it's about having clear options to build now, to secure now, and to plan for the future. Our mandate was backed in by the New South Wales Government response to the O'Reilly checkup. And it's a really important point as we, as infrastructure planner, play a pivotal role in coordinating the development of generation, transmission and storage in the RESs, and the delivery of community and employment benefits to RES communities, as well as the coordinated approach to planning of the network within each RES. EnergyCo also facilitates the development of the priority transmission projects, in particular the Waratah Super Battery and the Hunter Transmission Project. These will ensure transmission of renewable energy in a way that allows diversity of resource across the state. Community engagement is at the heart of our work to ensure that people who live in the RESs share in the economic and social benefits of the transition, and you'll hear more about the significant progress made in that shortly. For the meantime, I'm signing off. I'll hand over to Mike Young, who will take you through the next part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that warm introduction, James, remotely. Today I'll be talking about a small part of the portfolio that I manage at EnergyCo, being working with regional communities that are hosting the renewable energy zones that we're delivering in New South Wales, and also coordinating the RESs and the ancillary infrastructure that we need to deliver those projects. I just thought I'd outline a few ways that EnergyCo is working with communities to minimise impacts and to maximise the benefits and to coordinate delivery of the RESs. Firstly, in regard to consultation, we do a huge amount of work in regional areas. As James mentioned, we've got offices in Dubbo, we've got offices in Newcastle. We're looking to open an office in the New England in Armidale very shortly. And we've undertaken a range of tailored consultation over the last 3 years, particularly in the Central West Orana, and are building our teams and our consultation efforts in other RESs as we progressively develop them. We've also established a range of key collaboration forums, so it's not just about ad hoc consultation, but it's also around putting in some structure around that collaboration. Firstly, we've got a renewable energy or the RES Steerco, which is a steerco that we run with local councils and government agencies. We've got a community reference group, we've got a First Nations working group, and we've also got a group where we work closely with the generation industry called Candidate Foundation Generators. All those groups are up and operating and have been for some time in the Central West Orana RES, and we're looking to do the same thing in the other RESs soon. In regard to maximising the benefits, the Minister for Energy, Penny Sharp, recently announced the inaugural funding for the community and employment benefit sharing in the Central West Orana RES. That really involves taking access fees from developers and providing that back to the community. And over the next 30 years or so, that's likely to deliver hundreds of millions of dollars back to regional communities that are hosting RESs. We've also progressing the Strategic Benefit Payments Scheme, which involves providing $200,000 per kilometre of transmission line hosted over 20 years and subject to CPI. We're also investigating the idea of proximity payments for neighbours, so to address those impacts that we are unable to mitigate through micrositing and good design. We're looking to enter into agreements with neighbours where necessary. We're also looking to provide upfront payments of 80% of the agreed negotiated agreement amount with landowners hosting transmission lines, which is something that no other public infrastructure provider does in New South Wales at this stage. In terms of economic development, we have the First Nations Guidelines and Renewable Energy Sector Board Plan that were published some time ago, but really EnergyCo's role is about implementing those plans through our procurement and tender processes, but also ASL, the Consumer Trustee, implementing those guidelines and plans through its LTESA auctions as well. So we're well on the way to implementing those guidelines. We're also working on coordinating delivery of infrastructure in the RES and maximising the benefits there. And we're recruiting dedicated people to live and work in the renewable energy zones, to work with industry, to work with councils, to work with community groups and other stakeholders. The first of those is Alex Hall, who's been appointed in the New England RES, and we're looking to make similar appointments in the Central West Orana RES and the Hunter Central Coast RES. In terms of infrastructure coordination, many people perhaps don't realise, but we've done a lot of work around looking at the cumulative impacts of both transmission and generation in regional areas, in particular the Central West Orana. We've published cumulative impact studies on our website. We're looking to update those and also start that process in the New England RES shortly. It's very important to work with councils and other key agencies to deliver things like roads and waste management and water supply and accommodation. And the RES Steerco in particular and the associated Master Coordination Plan has been established in the Central West Orana to allow us to do that meaningfully and systematically. We've also the government is looking to establish a roadmap interagency steering committee in accordance with the recommendations of the recent roadmap checkup. and that will really provide a whole of government approach to delivering the RESs and will assist EnergyCo in particular on that enabling and coordination of infrastructure and services that we need to deliver such a large change. Just touching on a few of those topics in a little bit more detail. Our commitment to communities. EnergyCo is committed to early, proactive and genuine engagement to ensure community input informs our planning. Some of those groups there that I've mentioned, the Community Reference Group, the First Nations Group, we've recently put our EIS for the Central West Arana Res on exhibition. And you can see there just a snapshot of the amount of community engagement that we've done, principally in the Central West Arana Res, but also now expanding into the New England and the Hunter in particular. And you can see there just the numbers in terms of that genuine commitment to talk with people, to meet with landowners, to listen to feedback and to make changes to improve our performance and outcomes accordingly. And as mentioned there, in terms of next steps, we are looking to open an office in Armidale, even as soon as the end of the year. In terms of benefits to local communities, one of the key parts of the architecture of the roadmap is collecting the access fees from generators and using a significant proportion of that to go back to regional communities that are hosting the infrastructure. And you can see there a photo of Minister Sharp and the local member in Dubbo, Dougal Saunders, announcing the first tranche of $128 million of community and employment benefits for the Central West Arana, but that's only the first tranche and that's for the next 4 years. As I said before, those access fees will be collected over a period of something in the order of 3 decades. And so what it illustrates is, a significant commitment to community outcomes and benefits, both tangible and sustainable. I also mentioned there the Transmission Acceleration Facility, which will be touched on a little bit later, I think, by Alex Finley. But we have forward funded that through the Transmission Acceleration Facility, which has enabled us to deliver those funds in advance of the access fees being collected. In terms of whole of government response, as I said, it's not just about building transmission lines and generators, building wind and solar. There's a whole lot of other things that need to happen to support the delivery of the renewable energy zones. When you look at them in their totality, they're enormous projects, and the work that we need to deliver them is not just within those RESs, but indeed all the way around New South Wales, particularly when it comes to ports and roads and transport. In regard to the steering committee that we've set up in the Central West Arana Res, that is looking at a few of those topics, including housing and accommodation, community infrastructure and services, roads and transport, environmental delivery, which is waste and water supply, and economic development and participation. Importantly, recognising that whole of government role, in addition to that interagency committee that will be set up shortly, we're also have signed MOUs or Memorandums of Understanding with the Department of Planning, Transport for New South Wales, Port of Newcastle, the Telco Authority, TAFE, and we're looking to sign agreements with Health, Education, Crown Lands and Forestry Corporation in the near future. You'll also see a call-out box there that councils are a key delivery partner in this, and we're entering into agreements with all of the key councils in the RESs and helping them to participate and help us to deliver the RESs in their local communities. Just in terms of an example of the sorts of challenges we've got, I just thought I'd call out the Port to Res strategy. This is really a strategy from the Port of Newcastle through to the Central West and New England RESs. Through this framework, we're looking to work with the ports, work with the generation industry, work with Transport for New South Wales, local councils and the community to secure port capacity, to look at portside storage in terms of what land we might need at the Port of Newcastle in particular, looking at road upgrades and also looking at things like traffic management and permitting of heavy vehicles on the road network and getting all the relevant environmental approvals, and we'll be doing more consultation on that in the future. Look, I just thought I'd finish up as well with a small announcement. I'm actually going to be finishing up with EnergyCo at the end of the year. I've been with EnergyCo for about 2.5 years, and I just wanted to take this moment to, I guess, tell people that they'll be leaving, but in particular to thank my colleagues at EnergyCo, James Hay, the Chief Executive in particular, who convinced me 2.5 years ago to come across to work on this once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform our energy system. I'd also like to give thanks to the leadership team who I've been working with throughout that time, and also in particular my team who have been fantastic. And I think we've achieved an extraordinary amount in a relatively short period of time. It's very challenging and very difficult to do something that's never been done before. And I often say that every day I get up and we're closer to building more transmission lines to connect more renewables to facilitate the transition is a good day. And I think in terms of my team and its work, what I'm most proud of in particular is that out of all the projects we're working on, we've got the Waratah Super Battery under construction. We've delivered credible alignments for the Hunter Transmission Project and for the New England RES transmission project, and we've prepared and publicly exhibited a EIS for the Central West Arana transmission project as well. And so given that we're talking about projects and transmission, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Mark Westbrook to talk about our projects. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And firstly, thanks, Mike, and thanks for your contribution on behalf of EnergyCo over the last 2.5 years. And look, thanks to everyone for joining us this morning. I'm going to give an update particularly on our 4 most active projects, and to give you an update on what we've achieved in 2023 and even more importantly, what we're doing in 2024. Before I do that, I just wanted to give a bit of an overview. So, as others have mentioned, there are 5 renewable energy zones, and you can see those on the graphic, on the map there in the grey areas. And there are also the 2 priority transmission projects that we're responsible for, which is the Hunter Transmission Project and the Waratah Super Battery. And in very simple terms, as infrastructure planner for these projects, that means we have to develop a plan for the network infrastructure that best achieves the objectives for those projects. We have to develop a preliminary study corridor, which is the route for that network infrastructure, which we think best balances the objectives based on a whole range of factors. We have to consult with the community and the impacted landowners, and we work closely with them to work out changes or refinements to those corridors to achieve a better outcome. And then we procure the delivery partners to take those projects forward, deliver them and operate them for the long term. And then we make sure that those projects are delivered according to the plan and to achieve the objectives. So I'll go into some detail of those 4 projects that are the larger projects. But before I do, I just wanted to touch briefly on the 3 smaller RESs, because there's been lots of progress on those during the year as well. So in February, the government declared the Illawarra RES, making it the final RES to be declared of the 5. In March, the government declared a draft access scheme for Southwest RES, and we're currently working to provide a recommendation to the Minister for Energy on how to proceed based on the feedback received during consultation early this year. And meanwhile, of course, Transgrid continues the construction of Project Energy Connect, which will form the backbone of that RES. For the Hunter Central Coast and Illawarra RESs, we are doing a lot of joint planning at the moment with transmission and distribution network operators to help us understand the opportunities to unlock capacity in the existing network through upgrades and augmentations to deliver new capacity for renewable and storage projects. And as part of that, we're also engaging extensively with generation and storage project developers. In the Hunter Central Coast RES, we've held an expression of interest process during the year with those parties, and we'll be doing a similar process for the Illawarra RES in 2024. So I want to move to the Waratah Super Battery on the old Marmora site. So this was declared a PTIP in October 2022 in response to announcements of the potential early closure of the Eraring power station. Waratah Super Battery is an unusual project. It's a system integrity protection scheme. And what that means is that it's designed to act as a shock absorber in the event of sudden power surges on the network. And what that enables us to do is to run the existing transmission network harder to provide additional capacity. Following a competitive process, EnergyCo's selected Acacia Energy to deliver the battery component of that project and Transgrid as the network operator. So in terms of key milestones in 2023, the government granted planning approval for the construction and operation of the Waratah Super Battery. In May, Acacia Energy began construction of the project on the old Marmora project site. And there's been great progress since then. So the civil works on site are progressing well. The first electrical equipment has been installed, and in Q1 we'll see the arrival of the main transformers, and that'll be followed soon after by the delivery of the first energy segments for the project. So this project is on schedule and on budget. Now I'm going to talk about Central West Orana RES. So this is the first RES in Australia, declared in late 2021, and there have been significant milestones in bringing this project forward in 2023. This project will have the project will have capacity to connect at least 3 gigawatts of renewable energy generated by wind and solar projects. That's the equivalent of powering a quarter of the state's energy demand. We are proposing to expand the capacity of the Central West Orana RES to align with the state's future energy demands, and to this end, the government is proposing an amendment to the declaration, increasing the intended network capacity to 6 gigawatts. This amendment was exhibited in September, and an announcement regarding the declaration is expected soon. So in terms of key milestones in 2023, EnergyCo lodged the environmental impact statement for the project. So it's the first RES to reach that stage of development, and we're preparing a comprehensive response to the submissions we've received, which will be available on the planning portal in early next year. EnergyCo also selected ACE RES as the first-ranked proponent to deliver the network infrastructure for this project. ACE RES is a consortium backed by Acciona, Cobra and Endeavour Energy, and we're working closely with them to finalise and enter into a commitment deed, upon which they'll be officially confirmed as the preferred bidder. And in 2024, we'll be progressing through early works on the project. That includes early design work and ordering of long lead time items, so that by the end of 2024, we'll be able to start the construction phase of this project. In terms of access, awarding access right for generation and storage projects, in 2023, the first tender for access was delayed, and that reflects the extensive market engagement undertaken and the importance of getting it right. So in early 2024, we'll be progressing with the award of access for this important project. I'm going to move now to New England RES. So this is the largest RES in New South Wales with an ultimate capacity of 8 gigawatts. And the RES holds great potential for energy generation and storage projects. This year, we identified a preliminary study corridor for this the transmission infrastructure in the New England and Upper Hunter regions. Community consultation on this preliminary study corridor started in June, and we'll be continuing to consult with community on potential optimisations of this corridor in response to that engagement. We've also commenced biodiversity field studies on this alignment. The procurement of the network operator for New England RES will begin in 2024, and we'll have more to say about the precise timing of that procurement shortly. Now, finally, I'd like to go to the Hunter Transmission Project. This is a critical project enabling renewable energy from both the Central West Orana RES and the New England RESs. By connecting these RESs to the Bayswater power station, the Hunter Transmission Project will facilitate the delivery of clean energy to consumers in the Hunter, Sydney and Illawarra regions, where 80% of New South Wales demand is. The project involves the construction of a dual-circuit 500 kV transmission line between Bayswater and Oraring power stations, and it provides at least 5 gigawatts of transfer capacity. So in 2023, after extensive investigations, we identified a potential 115-kilometre corridor between the Bayswater and Oraring power stations where the project could be located. This route seeks to strike a reasonable balance between the different land uses in the Hunter region. The corridor utilises more than 85% of lands owned by power stations, mining companies and the government. So that preliminary corridor is now on public exhibition until next Monday, with some of our first community information sessions in the region held last week with really good participation. Participation from key stakeholders, including landowners that are impacted by the project and Aboriginal groups and wider community. So EnergyCo will carefully consider all the feedback to refine that corridor, and this refined corridor will inform the preparation of our EIS for the project. In 2024, we'll progress with the appointment of a network operator for this project, and we'll also be progressing for the tender for the design and construction of the project. So I'm now going to hand the baton to Alex Finley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and it's great to be with you all this morning. So I'm the Chief Finance and Operations Officer for EnergyCo, and this morning I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things. Firstly, I wanted to talk to you about the electricity supply and reliability checkup. So this was the review commissioned by the New South Wales Government to inform them on the energy market and policy landscape since 2020. So the O'Reilly review was conducted by Cameron O'Reilly from Marsden Jacobs, and the review recognised all of EnergyCo's achievements in community support and infrastructure planning over the period since EnergyCo was reinvigorated under the New South Wales Electricity Roadmap in 2020. As you've been hearing from Mark and Mike, we have so much to be proud of with all of the accomplishments that we've achieved over the last 2.5 years. The New South Wales Government accepted most of the recommendations from the O'Reilly checkup, including the need to provide extra support for EnergyCo in its delivery goals. And that really means ensuring that EnergyCo has all of the resources and support it needs to set itself up for the future success over the coming years. One of the recommendations was for Infrastructure New South Wales to conduct a program-level review of EnergyCo's work and to help identify and mitigate any risks for our RES delivery. We're now looking into implement some of those recommendations around strengthening our governance, streamlining the planning and approval process, and we look forward to greater funding certainty for the RES program into the future. One of the critical elements that has been achieved to date is legislative change, which enables EnergyCo to have a decision-making governing board, and we'll look to establish that early in 2024, and that will be a real milestone for us. One of the other things that we're looking to do is to establish an audit and risk committee as well, and will be that will aim to strengthen EnergyCo's mandate and identify all of the things that we need to do into the future and our standing as a distinct institution within the New South Wales Government. The other thing I'd like to talk to you about is the Transmission Acceleration Facility this morning. So In September, the New South Wales Government announced an additional $800 million for the Transmission Acceleration Facility, or the TAF. The TAF funds are used by EnergyCo to deliver our development works needed to bring these projects to market and to bring forward community benefits. The TAF has been working alongside the projects since its establishment. And one of the things, so the TAF has a capital program of now $2 billion, and that is used to work very closely with each of the projects as a credit committee, if you like. So we understand all of the needs of the projects and all of their budgeting and their planning and their program in order to take them from initiation through to the development phase at the point where they are willing to and able to issue a contract and award a contract to a network operator to actually undertake the project itself. Part of what the TAF did earlier this year, in October, was support the Minister for Energy, Penny Sharp, to announce that $128 million of funding earmarked for community projects in the Central West Orana Res. And that will be deployed from the TAF. So there was $68 million that will be contributed from the network operator who is looking to be appointed for the Central West Orana Res, and then a further $60 million in advance funding, which will ultimately be recovered from the access fees for those generation projects that establish themselves within the Central West Orana Res. So that's kind of the essence of what the TAF is intended to do. As I said, the TAF works with each of the projects very closely. We're currently working with the New England project in order to advance their preparatory work. We're also working with the Hunter Transmission project, which you just heard from Mark on, around its preparatory work in order to get to the point where we can award these contracts to the network operators. So I'd just like to hand over now to Andrew Kingsmill. Andrew will talk to you very briefly about the NIS.
Well, thank you, Alex, and good morning all. I'd like to briefly touch today on one of the highlights for my team in 2023, which was the release of EnergyCo's inaugural network infrastructure strategy. The strategy sets out transmission and network infrastructure projects to enable and to develop the New South Wales power system, including the renewable energy zones. The projects are in three categories: projects that we need to deliver now, which means that we need to progress in the next 10 years. And Mark's covered what EnergyCo is doing on those projects at the moment. But it also has in it projects that we need to secure now, projects that we need to start getting ready for effectively, that might leverage the full benefits of some of the technologies in our network, such as long duration storage, or to be able to expand reses or to accommodate perhaps delays in other network infrastructure. So we've started turning our minds to that. The network infrastructure strategy also has projects that we're looking to plan for the future, and these projects would be required under a strong electrification scenario post-2023, but we need to be cognisant of them now in how we plan the power system. We've talked about the NIS several times this year, and so this morning I just wanted to touch on a couple of aspects of the NIS that we're working on in the background in addition to the major Deliver Now projects. One of those aspects is the potential to increase capacity in existing networks through minor upgrades and augmentations. And my team's been working with transmission and distribution network service providers in New South Wales to start to explore some of those options, and that will become an increasing focus for us in 2024. There are opportunities in existing networks, and we'll be looking to that, and that includes in two of our coastal reses and smaller reses, the Hunter Central Coast Res and the Illawarra Res. So you can expect some further developments on that in 2024. The other aspect of the NIS that I wanted to call out today is that it has some outcomes of the modelling in there that it's worth being quite cognisant of around storage. And behind the scenes in the modelling in the NIS, it indicates that over 7 gigawatts of new storage is modelled by 2030. Now, that's storage of both large scale and small scale. That's storage of all durations, short duration and long duration. But that's a significant amount, and that's something that EnergyCo will be focusing in 2024 on how we can enable. In terms of long duration storage, we have the 2 gigawatt object in the Electricity Infrastructure Investment Act. And we're working with proponents of long duration storage to look at how we can enable the full benefits of that storage. Often long duration storage brings benefits not just of being able to charge and discharge, but also of what it can do to stabilise the network and provide ancillary services. And so we want to be designing our network infrastructure to leverage the full benefit of that. And we have some early works underfoot at the moment with proponents to look at that. But also, storage isn't just long duration and it isn't just large scale. And so the NIS assumes consumer energy resources, and we're working with other parts of the New South Wales government on that. And it also assumes large scale storage of shorter durations. And we're working with the Consumer Trustee and other bodies on being able to bring that into the network. So 2024 will be a focus on a number of areas for my team, other than the large-scale projects, or as well as the large-scale projects, where there's significant opportunities for the power system in the future. We've now reached the end of our presentation slides, and so we're going to go into a time of question and answer with the panel, moderated by Chloe Hicks, our Executive Director of Strategy and Policy.
Good morning, everyone. So we've now got time for around 20 minutes of questions and answers from the EnergyCo leadership team. We'll be first going through some of the questions that we received in the lead up to this event, and then we'll move on to some of the ones that have come in over the course of this webinar. Please do keep them coming via the Slido. We have around 800 people registered to attend today, so we may not get to them all, but let's see how we go over the next 20 minutes. So I might start off with a couple of questions for Mike around planning and communities, particularly seeing Mike's the one to leave. We need to use as much of his time as possible today. So Mike, can you tell us about the list of projects in the Central West Orana and how people can get more access to what those projects are?
Yeah, so I guess all the reses have a number of projects, not just transmission that we're concentrating on today, but also generation in terms of wind and solar, and also batteries and some pumped hydro as well. EnergyCo recognises that people are really hungry for knowledge about what those projects are, where they're up to, what kind of issues and impacts they may have, particularly local landowners and local communities. We run on our website a interactive map that shows the projects that we're particularly dealing with, and we expect to be connecting to our transmission lines. But also we recognise there are other projects, wind and solar, and indeed, all sorts of projects in the Central West Orana, like mining projects and inland rail and so forth, that people are interested in. So where they're not energy related, where they're energy related, they can go on our website and see those, but that's also connected to the Department of Planning's website, where you can see and get further information on each of those projects about where they're up to in the planning process, and potentially look at documentation like environmental impact statements on those projects. So we recognise that we need to wrap our arms around all of those things, and people are hungry for that knowledge. And so, yes, I would, recommend they see our website and also Department of Planning's website.
Great. And speaking about getting more information, how can local businesses get involved in various projects being undertaken and understand the opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, clearly what we're talking about is an enormous transition, and there's all kinds of opportunities, both in terms of what we're doing with our network operator, but indeed the generators in terms of their procurement and so forth. But there's a whole range of ancillary opportunities with jobs and businesses in the local area. Look, we've also appointed a jobs advocate in New South Wales who publishes reports and provides advice to the Minister for Energy around those opportunities. We've also we're entering into MOUs with TAFE and with some of the education providers out there and the regional training organisations and First Nation groups, etc. And look, we think there's more work to do in that space in terms of connecting those opportunities. In some ways, we've been talking about the RES for a number of years, but in terms of actual construction, we're sort of at the beginning of that journey. And so we do think that part of the work that we're wanting to appoint those regional coordinators, and they'll be focusing on some of those economic opportunities. And the idea of their work is to connect the dots between those economic opportunities, the generators, the network operators, and to ensure that communities as a whole, maximise the benefits of this transition.
Great. Mark, we might move on to you. Can you share how EnergyCo would like to interact with the industry going forward?
I guess we're really conscious of the need to be interacting with the industry in a really dynamic way so that they're informed of opportunities, and that's not just the network operators and the construction market, but also the developer market. And really one of our key objectives is to provide early and be very transparent about what's happening and what we're delivering. We certainly from a projects point of view, we have regular market sounding exercises where we reach out to the industry and engage with them about the projects we're delivering, and we're always very open for new participants to be part of that process. Particularly, we're conscious of not just engaging with the tier one contractors, the larger contractors, but also with some of those smaller contractors to make sure they're given opportunities to participate, whether it be participating with those larger contractors or participating in parts of the scope for our projects.
Great. And in terms of delivery, have you seen any revised timelines for Central West Orana or any associated shifts for New England or South West, particularly in relation to access rights for Central West?
So just in terms of timetable, so in May this year we published the NIS, and that's a document that's has the best information on timelines and cost information, and we'll continue, Andrew and his team will continue to keep that up to date. So there'll be a revision of that document as required to keep people informed of timetable and costs. Look, in terms of access rights, as I said, we'll be progressing with access rights on Central West Orana next year. We're not expecting that to impact the construction timetable for Central West Orana, which is to start the construction phase at the end of next year, and nor are we expecting it to have flow-on effects for other projects in terms of access rights. That should be maintained as per the current schedule.
Great. Speaking of changes, this is probably one for either myself or for Andrew, but is EnergyCo considering revising the capacity targets for the renewable energy zones in light of the excess of projects proposed in each RES area? I think the first thing I'd say to that is that's exactly the process that we've just been working through for Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone, to look at increasing the network capacity from an initial 3 gigawatts when it was first declared to up to 6 gigawatts to better reflect both the changing needs for electricity in New South Wales, as well as the strong investor interest within Central West, and then also integrating with the broader network infrastructure strategy and the extra capacity that we will get from the Hunter Transmission Project and the opportunities that provides. But I might throw to Andrew to talk to that a bit more.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chloe. I think one of the interesting things that we saw from the network infrastructure strategy modelling earlier in the year was that when you look out to 2040, and I know 2040 seems a long way away, but it's actually not when we talk about major projects. But we see the level of renewable generation in New South Wales modelled to increase to 34 gigawatts. And we also see an increase in storage and firming to complement that. And so I think when we put that in perspective, that's exactly why we've just been through the process that Chloe referred to of increasing the capacity of the Central West Orana res. We can do that with other reses if we need to, but really having a 2040 view from the network infrastructure strategy, we're aiming to effectively size the reses up front and be quite upfront with hosting communities about where that's likely to go.
Andrew, while we have you, there's a question here about long duration storage, which is covered in the network infrastructure strategy. What are the future plans for long duration storage?
Look, I'd start by saying, I think, Chloe, to proponents of long duration storage, keep going and press on. I alluded earlier in my talk to just how much how much storage in total we're seeing that is needed to firm these renewables. And long duration storage in particular has a role in the system for both the daily and the overnight sort of charge-discharge cycle, but also for seasonal charge-discharge cycles to make the system resilient against, your wind droughts, your dunkelflouts, or sort of other events such as that. So in terms of plans, we're, as I mentioned, working with proponents of long duration storage to look at how the storage and the network can be planned together, but we're also engaging very much with other parts of government on consumer energy resources and conscious of what's happening there.
Great. Alex, in your presentation, you mentioned an $800 million increase to the transmission acceleration facility that was approved by government earlier this year. What is that $800 million being used for?
So in particular, that $800 million helps us support the Central West Orana res. The way that the development work is funded is that the network operators go through the regulatory process and they receive a regulatory determination, and one of the things that they need to do when they receive that regulatory determination is to pay the infrastructure planner fee. As James mentioned in his introduction, EnergyCo is appointed as the infrastructure planner for all of these projects, and in doing so it has the responsibility to plan and coordinate each of the res. That involves working closely through our procurement process for the network operators, but also do all of the planning activity, whether it's the design of the res, the community work that Mike was talking about. So there is a lot of funding that is required in order to get a project through the procurement stage to the point where we're ready to award a contract to the successful network operator. So the $800 million was in particular to support the Central West Orana res with its ongoing development activities in concert with EnergyCo as infrastructure planner. Those funds will be repaid by the successful network operator once they're contracted and they reach financial close and receive their regulatory determination. But there is lots of work that the TAF needs to do across all of the projects that are within EnergyCo's suite of things to deliver.
Thanks. It's been mentioned several times this morning that Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone is the first in Australia and the first being rolled out under the Electricity Infrastructure Roadmap. So my next question, which is a really popular one on Slido, is about what lessons EnergyCo has learnt from the rollout of the first renewable energy zone, and how will it use these lessons to streamline processes for the remaining renewable energy zones? I think this is one that all of us could answer, and if James Hay were here, he would say EnergyCo is a learning machine. But I might just first throw to Mike to address this one.
Look, I guess, as Chloe said, we are a learning machine. Secondly, I'd say we want to be an on-the-ground machine as well, in the sense of having those regional resources, etc., deployed. And I think one of the lessons from Central West Orana is, whilst we had elements of that, I think that we need to do more of that earlier on, And so, having people who are employed, who are living, who are working in the res, and I'm particularly thinking of the New England one as I guess the next major one, cab off the rank, ensuring we have those resources there to talk with communities, councils and other stakeholders. I think the other thing is having a clear plan, touching on my presentation around the coordination of those cumulative impacts and other sorts of ancillary infrastructure and services, so that we had elements of that, but I think we need to bring forward more of that and communicate that better to communities and councils and so forth, so that they understand what is the whole picture here that we're being asked to, I guess, deal with, not just about a transmission route, but also about where the generation is likely to occur, how are we connecting to that generation, etc. So having a clearer master plan of all of those elements. The other thing is, I think, delivering those early benefits. So we heard about the $128 million announced a couple of months ago for Central West Orana. I don't want to wait another 12 months to have a similar announcement in the New England. So we really need to accelerate those early community benefits and make sure that we're not just talking about them, but we're actually delivering them on the ground, and people can see that, that the sorts of things we're talking about are actually delivered in practice. And then the last thing I think is around the whole of government approach. So I highlighted the fact that we've got a number of MOUs with a lot of the agencies, etc. But I think as you break this down again, the size and scale and the complexity of all these things is going to take resourcing and effort and concentration, from a number of different sorts of agencies and local government and indeed community groups. And so I do think we need a better plan around ensuring that we front foot that and make sure that those agencies deliver the services and the sorts of infrastructure to manage those sorts of issues that are of concern to the community. So that would be my 4 or 5 top things. Thanks.
Maybe I could just add, in terms of the procurement of the project, we've engaged with the market post Central West Orana to really understand their perspective on the procurement we ran and what the strengths and weaknesses of that were. I think the feedback was quite positive in that the process we ran and the risk allocation was fair and delivered a good outcome. I think though, reflecting on that, every renewable energy zone is different, and we're in a really dynamic environment. It's not just dynamic in Australia, the energy transition, but globally, resources and other constraints on the market are increasing because we're part of that global energy transition. And that means we need to be really conscious of how that may impact the future procurements, because there may be a need for a different risk allocation for the next res to reflect those additional constraints. Probably the other thing that came out of that lessons learned process on Central West Orana was just the importance of stakeholder engagement, community, but also the market more generally around other network operators, distribution network operators, making sure that we're engaging completely to optimise the solution for the res.
Mark, while we've got you on this topic, is there anything more you can tell us about the procurement framework for the New England Renewable Energy Zone?
So we're really conscious that the market's very interested in the timetable for New England, and that market appetite and interest is great to see, and we know we need to come back to the market soon with an update on exactly how that timetable is going to work in 2024. I said earlier we're expecting that procurement to kick off in 2024. We will come back to the market soon with an update on the precise timing of when that will be.
Great. One topic that has been spoken about a lot in industry lately is the draft energy policy framework, which was released by the Department of Planning and Environment. Even though that's not EnergyCo's area, it absolutely relates to the work that we are doing to roll out the roadmap. On this one, I might throw to Mike to just ask, how does it bear on the implementation of the roadmap? And can you shed any more light on this draft policy?
Sure, yes, it has been attracted a lot of attention recently. And I would say that I did have 20 years working for the Department of Planning, so I'm probably a little bit biased. But look, the energy framework has 5 elements to it: an updated wind farm guideline, or wind energy guideline, updating the 2016 guidelines, an updated solar guideline, a transmission guideline that will be particularly relevant to EnergyCo's and Transgrid's projects, a private agreement guideline, so helping landowners in particular understand what they ought to consider putting in agreements with generation companies in particular, and making sure they account for things like decommissioning and those sorts of things that might be a bit confusing for some landowners. And then lastly, a benefit sharing guideline, which really provides a line in the sand for expectations that the New South Wales government has in regard to the generators' contributions to councils in particular under planning agreements. And something that's been debated for probably 20 years or more, and now I guess the government's coming out and saying this is the benchmark that we expect people to start talking around in terms of those planning agreements. Look, the main thing to say is each of those documents are on public exhibition. I understand that public exhibition's been extended to the end of January, so I'd encourage people that have concerns or comments or suggestions to put in a submission so they can be considered prior to the final documents being prepared. The other thing to say is that once the final is issued, there's then a transitional period of around 6 months. So you're looking in terms of their application, and I guess this is particularly relevant for generators who might be online today. You're looking at least 12 months before planning would seek to be applying them to particular projects. And look, whilst there's a lot of detail in there, my general appraisal of them is they're either neutral or beneficial in terms of encouraging investment and delivering wind and solar generation in New South Wales. But as I say, if people disagree with that, they should put in a submission.
Great. The next question that is trending the highest is who will be replacing Mike Young? We wish we could give you the answer to that one today, but please stay tuned for more information on that. I think it's very safe to say that you'll be very missed, Mike, not just by us, but by all the stakeholders you've worked with.
Thank you.
As your goodbye gift, I'm going to give you the final question for the panel, which is about one of the projects you said you're very proud of, which is the EIS for the Central West Arana Res Transmission Project. And just wanting to ask if there'll be any changes to that project coming up.
Yeah, look, I think it's important there's probably some community groups and even some landowners online today, and we've been working with communities in the Central West Arana for probably 2 or 3 years now. We made some major changes to the alignment when there was concerns around the impacts on the Merriwell-Cassilis Plateau, around those interactions with agriculture. And we think that the route we've chosen, whilst it still will have impacts on people, and so don't want to underestimate those, we have sought to minimise those through using things like mining land and co-locating with the existing transmission line there. Also prioritising landowners that are already hosting generation, etc. But we certainly recognise there are still people that are very concerned about the impacts on their properties and certainly understand that. And so the main message I want to say is that the exhibition of the EIS that's just finished and our response to submissions will be accompanied by what's called an amendment report, and that will be reflecting any changes that we decide to make as a result of that feedback from the community and interactions with individual landowners. And so I really want to say it is not 100% locked in. There will be, I expect, some modest changes around addressing impacts on an individual landowner basis or an environmental basis. And indeed, the Department of Planning may, in fact, condition us ultimately to, make changes to the alignment in any sort of final planning approval. So, whilst we don't expect, the changes to be massive because we think we've selected, on balance, a good route, there will certainly, I expect, be a few changes that we'll document in that amendment report probably around March or April next year.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike, Mark, Alex and Andrew. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today and not only engaged with us through this webinar, but have also been part of all the different processes that we've had this year. We really look forward to your ongoing collaboration in 2024. I'd also really like to thank the EnergyCo communications team, who behind the scenes have done a fantastic job in bringing together today's webinar. So moving forward, please do get involved or stay involved with EnergyCo. We encourage you to stay engaged through subscribing to our mailing list, visiting our website for updates and resources, and actively participating in our community-based forums. The release of our strategies, things like the network infrastructure strategy that we spoke about today, also provide an opportunity for you to provide feedback and shape the future of New South Wales's energy infrastructure. We value your input and encourage you to participate in the consultation processes. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions, concerns or suggestions at any time. Our contact details are readily available at the bottom of our website and presentation materials. On behalf of EnergyCo, once again, I thank you for being part of today's webinar. Thanks.